So in terms of the domestic economy, what would a Trump presidency mean? Well, let's just look at some of his pledges. So in very traditional Republican terms, he's talking about tax breaks and reduced regulation. So we can probably look forward to that. In terms of some of his specific pledges on the economy, he's talking about getting rid of income tax on taxation on tips and on overtime. And I guess the risk there is that those two things combined, tax breaks and increased disposable income through reduced tax on tips and overtime, has the potential to be quite domestically inflationary, I would say. The other big domestic policy issue is if he was to carry through on his 15 million deportations of migrants, that's potentially an enormous cost. I think for every 2 million people you expel out of your country, I saw some figures recently that it would cost about 65 billion US dollars per 2 million people. On the international front, I think if Trump carries through what he says he's pledged, it has the potential to be extremely disruptive. Moving towards 20% unilateral tariffs will take us away from basically a free trade mantra that has existed and has been pushed by the US through international institutions like the IMF, etc., since Bretton Woods, so since the end of the Second World War. The other key thing, I think, that might spook capital markets is Trump's argument that the president should have a greater say in interest rate policy. So countries have, including the UK, including the US, many central banks around the world have independent control of monetary policy. And that is often done to reassure capital markets, to reassure international investors. And I would say that moving away from that is potentially quite risky.